Hello, hello, everybody. Anybody here? Everybody here? Keith, Sean. Oh man, look at all these great people. We are going to have a great time today. I always feel like we should start this by saying, if I got a great show lined up for you, it just feels very talking to a camera late night host. Anyway, Alec, oh man, all kinds of great people. Anthony, I'll get you up on stage. Let's do a little AV test. I saw your message. Tom. Hello, hello. Would you agree, Tom, that we have a great show lined up today?
Absolutely. 100%.
Absolutely.
Hey, Anthony.
Hey, come on up. Sean, are you ready? I know demo's still for a little bit, but I'll bring you up if you're ready. Give me the go signal. All right. I don't know if everybody's met Sean yet. He's got a demo for us today.
Infinite scroll.
See? And that's how you know it really works, if you can see into infinity.
That's what I tell people when they see I'm like, the infinite scroll means you did it. You nailed it. Okay, great.
I like how you really embrace it, though. Most people are like, oh my God, the infinity, get rid of it. It's too much. And you're like, check out my infinity.
Man. Is there anyone, this is the first time they've been able to join a RedwoodJS meetup while we're getting started? Anyone? I see a lot of familiar names. Cliff, Sean, hey, welcome. We'll introduce you here in a bit. Cliff, where are you from? Where are you joining us from live, Cliff? Oh, Orlando. You know, Florida's pretty popular these days. Would you agree? Like, is the popularity, should we all move to Florida, Cliff? That's what I want to know. Okay. All right. Cliff says yes.
Miami seems to be the place to be. So I don't know. A lot of Bay Area people have bounced to Miami, it sounds like, from Twitter. I don't know. I don't know anyone, though.
I also don't.
That's a big change in climate, going to Miami from San Francisco. That's a pretty wild transition.
Yeah, I agree. Culturally, weather, humidity.
Yeah, that would be
Alaska.
That would be the thing for me, man. Humidity. It's always the perfect humidity in San Francisco. It's always like 60% humidity, to where it doesn't feel dry, but it also doesn't feel humid. It's always just right on.
This Swede pipes in and asks if Miami isn't for retirees. Cliff, I'll let you handle Toba. But go nice. He's from Sweden. He's from the happy place, so you can convince him that Florida is or is not the happy place as well. Well, we can get started. If there's any other, I'm not sure who else from the core team is here, but let me know if you want to join. We do have some fun demos happening, and I may have lost Anthony. I might have to bring him back up here. But if anyone hasn't seen it yet, one thing I am super excited about, and Anthony's already done it right up here. Let me get the Twitters going. If you haven't seen it, oh, and Anthony, just let me know you want to jump back on if you can. I'm happy to do so. If people haven't seen it yet, there is a fun little bit of news that happened just the last couple days. Prisma has been working on a new connector for MongoDB. That's right, all you JavaScript Mongo fans. This just came out, and there's an early access program, and that is the Redwood tutorial blog project running on MongoDB in the back end. Took me about 30 minutes to make the switch. They've kept the syntax mostly the same. You have to handle IDs a little bit differently, but there it is, MongoDB Atlas and Redwood blog using Prisma. They're looking for people to join their early access program. They need some more feedback. They've got a great PM on it, Matt Mueller. And if you are interested in checking out the world of Mongo and Redwood, I actually put some information in the blog post there about how you could join the early access program. So check that out, pretty exciting. And Anthony's got a write-up on how to get set up on MongoDB as well for MongoDB Atlas. It's a great DAS, database as a service. Anyway, And I think it's going to solve, for some people, I think it's going to solve a lot of serverless performance issues for them as well. So anyway, all right, now let's get on. That was just a special little announcement. Any other special announcements before we get started? That was unplanned. That was totally just last minute. Anyone else? No? All right. Well, first up, let's, Sean, you work with Render. Well, a little bit of context here. Redwood launches about a year ago, and we launch as full stack for the Jamstack. Our first deployment hosting provider is Netlify. We have a really strong relationship with them, and they have a great product. And Netlify allows you to run your API serverlessly, run your web assets statically over CDN, low cost, high performance, and works great. Given some parameters for your application, has been a really a really successful start for Redwood and its foundation. So we love Netlify, but that type of environment and setup and hosting infrastructure is not right for every project. And recently, there's been a lot of other, I'll say, traditional infrastructure deployment hosts that are building in first-class support for Redwood that allow you to do other things with more traditional infrastructure. But render.com is, I think there's always the Heroku comparison. Render, and Sean's going to tell us more about it, he works at Render, does things that are a little bit of the workflow is a bit of a mashup between the Jamstack deployment process, but then you have traditional server infrastructure at your disposal to do other things as well. And coming up in this next release, we have first-class built-in deployment support for render.com, thanks to Sean. Did I get most of things right, Sean?
I think so. Yep, absolutely.
Where are you? Well, so thank you. That was a lot of work over, I think, a couple months now. But yeah, tell us a little bit, like who are you? I don't even know if you've gotten to meet Tom or Dom. You've been active in the PRs and issues and Slack, but yeah, where are you? Who are you?
I'm Sean. Right now, I'm based in Toronto, but I'm moving to the Bay Area soon. I'm a relatively new employee at Render, and then I started working with you, David, and the rest of the Redwood core team to come up with first class deploy support for Redwood to deploy to Render, and yeah.
Well, thank you. It's and there's a few other things. Well, if you want to, I'll hand it over to you. I maybe even stole a little bit of your thunder, but were you able to set up, and do you want to take us through a demo now of how to use Render for deployment? Okay, because I know there's a few other bells and whistles that we haven't had available right out of the gate before for a deploy host. So I'm excited. People should get excited. All right, are you able to share your screen?
I'm working on that right now. All right. So we'll start right.
Got it.
So we are on render.com. And as David mentioned, we're a cloud hosting provider to run apps and websites, and including Redwood. I think some of the things we offer is web servers or static sites are free and over a lightning fast CDN. Which is great for Jamstack applications. And then not related to Redwood, we also have Docker containers, cron jobs, background workers. And then also we have managed Postgres, which integrates very well with Redwood apps that want to use Postgres. We use a deploy, like a push to deploy system where every time you push, instant deploy to your app to update both the web and your API server. So update automatically. And I will take you into the dashboard. I already have an app deployed that I'm going to show you, but we'll rewind to the project right here. So one of the first things I started to build out when I started this project
Sean,
was...
could you boost? Sorry to interrupt. Could you do the command plus on your VS Code, or however, just to bump the font size one click or two?
Better?
Oh, that's great. Yep. Thank you so much.
Perfect. So when I started working on the integration for Redwood and Render, I started working on a Redwood app of my own to test the deployment on Render, and it was just this yarn Redwood. Yeah, so I created this very simple voting app where you could vote between dogs or cats and see which one got the most amount of votes, and then to see how easily I would be able to deploy something like this to Render using the integration. So I'm just going to stop this. So everything's ready to go, and then I would run yarn Redwood setup deploy render.
You added deploy.
Pardon me?
Oh, look at deploy spelling. You got it.
Oh,
it's because you're live streaming. It's impossible to spell correctly. That's a part of the deal.
There we are. So the first thing that happens is we make sure that the Prisma data source provider is correct, and then this is the interesting part. It will then create a render.yaml, which is our infrastructure as a code file that has the description of the services that need to be deployed to run your application. So the first one is your static website, and build commands to start that, and all the environment variables to get that going. I will loop back to this rewrite a little bit later on, but this is something that has to be this rewrite rule has to be added after your first deploy. And then second, we have the backend API server that is running in our node environment. And then we have Redwood commands for deploying and serving the API. And then the environment variable to connect to your database is provided as well. And then also the creation of the database. So when we do our first deploy to Render,
wait, what? What was that last bit? Did you say create a database?
Correct. Yes. So this.
So wait, in one pass, I get all of my stuff, including a database, and it just works out of the box.
Correct.
Okay. Remember how I told you I was gonna like totally jump on your toes and like highlight something? It's the database. This is the first time a deployment host has said, "Oh, you need a database? Yeah. Well, here you are. This is a database, and it just works." So that's amazing, Sean.
And you're running.
Thanks for letting me interrupt.
I'm going to interrupt too. Just to clarify from the node environment, what is that actually running on? What is the infrastructure underneath that you'll deploy for the API side?
It's running on like an image, our node image on our infrastructure. Okay,
so not Lambda, right? This is not serverless. No. This is going to run on a real thing. So you could use GraphQL subscriptions. You'll have long running requests, et cetera, et cetera. Yes.
Correct. Yes. So if I'm going to switch over, so this is another thing we can do here. Let me just remove these for now. And switch over to this branch. So if I was using SQLite instead, then I would run yarn Redwood setup deploy render, and we have the -d flag that I can set to be SQLite. And it still generates the render YAML, but it's going to be a little bit different this time. The static site is exactly the same, but the difference is with the API, we've now mounted a persistent disk to it for storing the SQLite.db file across deploys. So depending on if you want to go with the Postgres, with our managed Postgres, or to use persistent disks mounted to the API and continue using SQLite.
Rob, this is your dream. Your dream is finally coming true.
It's my dream and Anthony's nightmare.
Hey, for anyone watching this recording at a later time, couple of quick things. One, some of the commands you see here are going to be updated. So this is working off of Canary release, and there's a few changes. Sean, is that right, or will this be the final command? Okay. So don't be surprised when you try this at home. Don't be surprised if some of the YAML looks a little bit different. And then a little heads up on SQLite. It's an amazing workflow, especially for getting started, prototyping, iterating quickly. And we were really excited to hear that Render could make this work out of the box. Odds are you're not going to want to use it forever. You'll switch over to Postgres sooner than later, which is not hard at all to do with Prisma. But, oh man, for as long as you can go, and look up some performance issues with SQLite. It reads blazingly fast. Not so much for writing, but it's a great place to get started. And it's super cheap. I think it's maybe 25 cents, Sean. Is that what is that the add-on cost here?
Yeah, so 25 cents for the 1
25 cents, you can go a long way. Anyway, give it a try. And all this stuff will be things that the Render crew is looking for some feedback on. But anyway, I'll let you keep going, Sean. But this is another amazing thing to see that we just haven't been able to do for a long time.
So I'm just going to get rid of that. So once the render YAML is in your Git repository, then you would head over to, this is because I switched to SQLite, I think, while it was running. You would come over to dashboard. I already have this running, but we would go to YAML, go to new from YAML. We just there's the repository there. All right. And we'll search for that. And click there. And then we'll create a service group name. Let's call this render Redwood. And then we would select the branch, which is correct. And then it's identifying that I've already deployed this repo before, but it wants to create a web, the static site, the API, and the database. So I'm just going to create new resources. And then it's telling me it wants to create the database, the web, and the API. And then we're good to go. So I'm just going to skip ahead, let that continue. So you can see the new one is already coming up, but these are ones that have already been deployed. I got these ready yesterday, and we have, something went wrong. So this is the rewrite. This is the rewrite rule that I skipped over earlier, that in order for the web to point at the API after deployment, a rewrite rule needs to be added here to point at the API. So I just need to come in here, grab this, and then paste that right in there and save. And now we're good to go.
Look at that. Sorry about cats, Tom.
Come on.
There we
Not
go.
sorry.
Yeah,
actually.
yes, now we're talking. Take that.
Oh, wait. People are clicking. This is live. Sean, this is amazing. Thank you. And then so that's all the setup. Everything you just described is initially getting up and running. And then what's my redeployment process like? And do you have preview options? And those are a lot of questions from Netlify and Vercel, people that are used to that deployment process. How does that compare to using Render?
Yeah, so we do have preview environments that can be enabled to create a new environment every time you create a pull request.
Okay, that's rock and roll. And then it was totally a leading question on my part, but I commit locally, I push to my repo, renders connected, triggers a redeploy.
Correct. Yep.
Man, that's the dream, Sean. That's the dream. What do you think, Rob? Hey, you got 2 thumbs up from Rob, Sean. Thank you.
I missed creating that YAML file. Was that just when you install Render to set up deploy Render? Do you get that YAML file and you can choose SQLite or Postgres? Sorry, I missed that.
So when you run the, let me just do this. When you run Render, there's a database option, and you can select Postgres, SQLite, or none if you want to do something else.
Awesome. You guys don't do MySQL?
No.
Is there a way that we could smooth out that process of adding the rewrite rule so that you didn't have to do a second step to do that? Is that something that we could figure out in the future? Because that would be awesome.
Yes, that's something that is in the more medium timeline for reworking our infrastructure as a code. As it stands right now, there's not a way for us to do that on first deploy, unfortunately. So, but that's in our pipeline and roadmap to have that sort of capability going forward. So as soon as we can change that, we will.
Awesome. That would be super nice. That would make it really, really slick.
I agree.
Yeah, Sean's iterated many times so far. It's really been a pleasure to work with you all, Sean.
Likewise.
And what about scaling? What if I want to add more containers? Is that something I can do easily?
Yeah. So like auto scaling, something that's right now in early access for us. So going forward, auto scaling will be something that you would have out of the box in the near future.
But you can boost right now. You have different plans.
Correct.
That you could run different performance levels. Okay.
Yep. And those are all on our. Just go to vendor.com. So for the static sites, those are always going to be free over our CDN. And then for the services, right now it's the one I deployed is on our starter plan. That's the default for $7 a month, and then you can scale up from there. And there's the 1 GB disk if you're going with the SQLite, and then databases as well, starting at $7. And we do offer a 7-day free trial to give it all a go.
Very nice. And because it's not serverless, there's no issues with connection pooling. That's one of the challenges right now with a serverless approach is you have to deal with connection pooling to your database if you're using a Postgres database or MySQL database. And so this more traditional architecture, containerized approach, you don't have those issues because you have a finite known number of containers. Each one's going to maintain a connection or a set of connections to the database. And so you get those performance characteristics. And then do you have control over like what data centers you're deploying to, or is that customizable? Can you configure that and make sure that your containers and your databases are in the same data center, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so right now we are operating for now in 2 regions. We have Oregon and Frankfurt for those in the EU. And all of these are things that you can specify in your render.yaml, or you can manually do through the dashboard after deployment. So
Very good.
So for sure, your database and your API would be in the same region if you want them to be.
Got it. Love it.
Yeah, that's so good.
Are we switching over the deployment step of the tutorial to this?
That's a good question. You know, yeah, it's a good question. Options, Rob. Options. All right.
Maybe
Sean.
once that you don't have to do that rewrite. That rewrite rule is annoying, but yeah, if you didn't have to do that second rewrite rule step, that would be pretty nice.
Pretty snappy, right? Pretty snappy. All right, Sean, feel free to stick around. You can join the panel of encouragers / hecklers. It just, depends on how well you know someone. But we'll have some questions at the very end as well. So you could also, if you can stick around for the rest of the meetup, I could pull you back up on stage if there's specific questions for you. But feel free. I'm not sure if I have to kick you off stage or not. Oh, how do you? Let me help you there. That's one of the things with Livestorm we don't always get is easy ways to exit things. So I clicked an X. I'm not sure if you can leave the stage, actually.
We could never figure it out either. We're just like, close the browser.
Rejoin Meetup.
You click your little thing in the corner right there. You have a little X right there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not intuitive. Anyway, it's working. It's working. Sean, thank you. Anthony, tell us about yourself. Some people have met Anthony before, but on the core team at RedwoodJS, and also has a day job, which is wonderful at StepZen. And but yeah, please introduce yourself just in case people haven't met you yet. And we've got a demo coming from you, correct?
Hello. That is correct. Yeah, if you've been hanging around the Redwood world at all in the last year, hopefully you know me by now. I've been out, doing podcasts and blogs, and I host FS Jam, so I am kind of like the core developer advocate on the team, and actually got into got into open source and all this stuff to get a job, and I ended up getting a job, which I would actually really attribute a lot to the work I've done in Redwood. And I work for a company called StepZen. I am going to drop 2 links in the chat, and then I will share my screen. So what is StepZen? That is a great question. That took me a very long time to answer, let me tell you. So StepZen is a way of stitching together lots and lots of different APIs.
Oh, he just froze.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah.
Now you're back.
So you may be thinking, okay, so you can stitch everything together into a single GraphQL API. That is the idea here, much like how Redwood has a single GraphQL API. So you can already start thinking about how this may be an interesting thing to combine with Redwood. And what I'm going to do is I have this Shopify account right here, super exciting, just 2 little basic test products. When I ever do, kind of demos and things, I like to make it as simple as possible so you really understand what's happening here with the code. And then I dropped this gist in the stream. And so far, all I've done is just generate a blank Redwood application. We're on 30.1. And I created my environment variable because I didn't want to do that live. I've tried this before and it does not work very well. But what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you just what it means to create a basic StepZen application. So for now, let's first look at project over here. And we have this is just a blank Redwood project right now. I've not done a single thing, just generated it, and here we are. So first thing we're going to do, sorry, Prisma, I love you, but we're going to delete that because we're not using a database at all. We're connecting to Shopify as our Shopify backend. And the first thing I should point out is that your
Wait, are you saying you can run Redwood without a database?
You can run Redwood without a database. You can run Redwood in all sorts of crazy ways.
Redwood is crazy. Nobody told. I'm kidding. People did tell me that, but it is kind of nice. Anyway,
you could delete the entire API directory if you really want to.
That's right. Yeah.
Or you could delete the entire web directory and just run as an API. Who knew? Who knew you could do so many things with one little framework?
So the first thing I would want to point out is that what I'm kind of doing here with the StepZen folder, it doesn't really need to be in your Redwood project, but I think it is nice to put it in your Redwood project for reasons that I'll get into. This is going to be our API, and it's a GraphQL API. So like any GraphQL API, it has a type. That type is product. That product has an ID, a handle, and a title. And that's all we're dealing with right now. This right here is going to be the one kind of StepZen isms, or some of the kind of StepZen isms where we are doing a products query. So that should look pretty normal. And then this at rest directive is where the magic is happening. We're turning this REST endpoint into a GraphQL schema, and we're doing the configuration for you automatically. So we see here this API key part, API password, and store name. And then the Shopify config, this is actually going to do our config for us. And I'll get into that in a second. But the only other thing you need to know is that we could also stitch together lots and lots of different schemas together. So this is actually something that has been a challenge for some people in Redwood because there's no real kind of schema stitching or ways of combining lots and lots of different schemas into one big schema. So this is another thing that spins out from StepZen that's really nice, is if we had orders in addition to products, we would just add that to this list right here, and it would all get smushed into this one giant schema. So that's really nice. And then the real magic here is what's happening with your config.yaml, which very, very important. You want your config.yaml in your .gitignore. Do not forget this step. It's a very, very important step because your config.yaml is going to have your keys. So a lot of this has to do with key management and just what a friggin' pain keys are in modern software projects. So this is all you would do is you put your API key here, you put your API password, and you put your store name. So that's all the stuff that I got from my Shopify dashboard over here, and which I'm not going to do right now because that would involve putting in all my keys there. But that's it. That's the entire API. That's all we got here. We got this products that's connecting to this endpoint, and then we got this thing that just stitches all your schemas together. You would then run a single command that is going to create an endpoint for you. That endpoint will be right here. So this is a hosted GraphQL API that you got totally for free. And the only thing you need to do to hit it is give it your keys, which I'm not going to entirely show here, but this is API key, and then I've got the rest of my key right there to make the request. We're going to make this GraphQL request for products. We want the title, the ID, and the handle. And there we go. Super exciting, right? Great. So now that we got that going, let's get this into our Redwood project. So this won't take very long, actually. This is very, very simple to do. In fact, we're going to first just edit our schema a little bit to take out the database stuff. So we're not going to need the DB or any of that. We're just going to bring in our schema and our services. We are then going to create our schema here, which is going to skip step. I'm skipping most of the generator commands because the generator commands in the back end are kind of coupled to Prisma to a certain extent. But this is just exactly the same as our StepZen schema. We have our products and we have our query for products. We need to then add GraphQL request library. And this is actually pretty interesting. And this goes back to the very first Meetup talk I did back in September with a FaunaDB project. This is almost an identical architecture to what I did there. So shout out to DT for helping me figure this out before I even knew I needed to. And we're going to just rename our DB to client. And this is going to make our GraphQL request from the back end. If you've ever looked at the Redwood doc page that says using a third-party API, it'll walk you through how to bring in node fetch to make a fetch request. This is a fairly similar thing, except I'm using GraphQL request instead of node fetch. and we're setting our endpoint to our environment variable, which was this thing. And then we're also setting our API key to API key. And you get that from your StepZen dashboard. So that's pretty much all you need to do to get connected to your StepZen API. And the reason why you want to do this in your API and not your web is because don't trust the client. You can't put your keys in the client. So this allows you to have your keys managed. Like a lot of people spin up serverless functions to manage their keys. Redwood's API is already configured for this out of the box in a really nice way. And so I went through this kind of long soul searching mission of spending months trying to build StepZen projects with all these different frameworks and different pieces of the GraphQL ecosystem, and eventually came all the way back to, okay, well, Redwood already solved this problem and pretty much nailed it. So now what we're doing here is...
what you would say is Redwood is the best?
For what we're doing right now, I don't know any other framework that would give you an auto-configured serverless GraphQL API out of the box that can be deployed with a single click. If anyone else knows of one, please let me know.
I'll take that answer. Yeah. I like it.
Yep. So here, this is our GraphQL request, same one we were making before in our Insomnia, but now we're making it in our service. And with all of that set up, if the demo gods are kind, then we should be able to make our request right now from our API. So we're going to go to localhost 8911/GraphQL, which has our query. We're going to do our query, and now we are connected to our StepZen API, which is in turn connected to our Shopify API. And so if you are a experienced Redwood developer, you already know what the next couple steps are. You're like, well, obviously now we need to create a cell that's going to query our service to get that data and put it on the home page. So we're going to create this cell that is going to map over our products. And then we're going to display that cell on the home page. So we're going to generate a home page and just bring in our products cell like so on the home page. And with all of that, we're going to go to localhost 8910, which is our home page, and then we're going to save that, and then there's our data. So that's our full stack all the way from our cell requesting our service, which is hitting the StepZen API, which in turn is hitting the Shopify API. So that is your entire data flow. And yeah, that's it.
I like how the front end took about 20 seconds.
Right.
So
crazy.
Hit that. Yeah, which was that was almost too much magic, because if people haven't seen Redwood or Redwood cells before, or let me back this up into a question. Why and what are the benefits of integrating StepZen GraphQL on the back end via the API versus consuming it on the front end website, which is another option you could do, correct? You could have your client connect to it directly.
So you couldn't, because you have to do something with your keys. So that's the thing, is because
you mentioned the keys already,
when you're making the GraphQL request from the back end, you are including the keys in the header. So that's why you can't just put that in the Apollo client on your front end, because then I did this experiment. I deployed that, and then I just went and looked on it. You open up source maps. So as long as no one knows that source maps exists, then you'll be fine. But you can actually go and find and see the key right in your developer tools if you do that.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. Okay. Thank you. That's a really fantastic reminder. But I think people do that. And then also you miss all the... Redwood has a really nice, I just call it a data lifecycle. We've integrated from front end to back end, but being able to use a cell component to handle all the states, you would miss out, because I have seen people connect to a GraphQL front end, maybe like content management, a CMS, right? Mm-hmm. They're connecting directly to it from the website, but then you lose a lot of the other power that Redwood offers and things like cells. So anyway, this is a really nice demo, Anthony.
Yeah.
And slick, just too fast. You were able to develop way too quickly. Slow down, make it hard.
I know. As one of those things, I was like, this is gonna be, you go through it so fast, and it's hard for people to understand like just how much is being done for you,
could you, Anthony, still have the GraphQL from Redwood if you wanted to have some stuff from Shopify, but also some stuff that you custom wrote for Redwood in the API in the normal way? Could you insert StepZen in the middle to stitch Shopify and Redwood and then expose that combined thing to the front end?
I would imagine. I haven't tried that yet, so I would be curious to see. But one of the nice things is that the way StepZen is set up is basically just like a gateway that you can do with whatever you want. Like you can decide how many things you want to attach to it and stitch into it and then bring in your project. And then you could also then have the rest of your Redwood project doing kind of whatever it wants. So in terms of how those two are going to kind of interplay with each other, I'm going to have to get like kind of deeper into a real use case to give a good answer to that.
Okay. And also
that'd be really interesting, Tom.
One thing I think that we should not brush over here, which is you took a RESTful API and just converted it into a GraphQL API, which
that's the real thing.
That's possible. Where do the types come from? How do you do that?
That's why StepZen is a useful tool and has, been, this isn't just something that just came out of nowhere. It's something that a large team of people who have decades of experience in API management at Apogee have been working on. So this is a serious piece of tech. And the translation from the REST to the GraphQL is one of the biggest things it gives you. And Shopify is one of about a dozen different APIs like this that they've already converted into GraphQL schemas in which you can auto import with their CLI. So just to hit on a couple questions in the chat, StepZen doesn't have anything specific for pagination. DT was asking about that. I think that would be something that you would kind of deal with in whatever GraphQL ways you deal with pagination, which, as we all know, is not the nicest thing in the world. So that is something that we may have a nicer solution for in the future if that's something people are asking for, because pagination is a huge pain that everyone hates. And someone else is asking about GraphQL Mesh. GraphQL Mesh is probably the closest thing out there to StepZen. If I had to really compare, like a lot of people hear about, and it got compared to like OneGraph a lot because of the kind of schema stitching stuff, but the REST to the GraphQL and the being able to kind of translate these different endpoints into GraphQL is the real value. And so GraphQL Mesh is a fairly similar tool. They also do things like SOAP and like a lot of kind of more obscure APIs, whereas we're kind of focused more on like what are the Jamstack APIs that we really want here, which are things like Shopify and Twilio, and you got things like MailChimp and Airtable, and you can also do databases as well. You can do MySQL and Postgres. So I'm going to start building out some kind of like full stack StepZen projects pretty soon, which that'll be pretty interesting. And TakeShape's Mesh is another one that's also pretty similar.
Yeah, and kind of the same space and has some different kind of functionality. But like in this general idea of like I have multiple different endpoints that I need to combine into one thing so that I can present to my client just a unified GraphQL endpoint or some single endpoint, so that your front-end developers can just be like, oh, the API, the only one API that I need to understand. There it is. Make sure.
Yeah. We used to say StepZen was like the one API to rule them all. We don't really say that as much these days, but that's the exact idea. And I've been meaning to check this out actually. So yeah.
What do you think, Sean? Could I run my StepZen Redwood project on Render? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, well, you basically just deploy the Redwood project normally, and it's already attached. You just include the environment variables. Like I didn't include a step, but you can just deploy this to Netlify the normal way. So it'd be same with Render. You would just be deploying the web and the API. You wouldn't need a Postgres database.
Yep.
Very nice. Very nice. I love it when a plan comes together. Thank you, Anthony. Feel free to stick around, and we'll probably get back to some more questions. But yeah, really slick.
Cool.
That is
Thanks,
fun.
everyone.
Dom, let's talk accessibility, Dom.
Yeah,
and you're the one who's doing the talking, because you know what? I'm going to be honest. I don't know a lot about accessibility, except for the fact that Redwood now offers a lot of new accessibility features and support built in, thanks to you.
Yeah, I have a lot of other people to thank too that I'll get to, but accessibility isn't a fringe feature. We want it to be core, and as we get to V1, we want to have like answers for it. And SPAs definitely have like a lot of problems. Accessibility is like a huge topic, and there's like a lot to dive into, but we'll scope it today to just like how we can fix the problems with single page applications, which Redwood is one of. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and we're gonna just look at asking a simple question here about, are these two websites accessible? And like, how would you answer that, right? It's like, what does that even mean? And I'd say it looks like, it's just a blog, it's just content. So there's not too much interactivity. So where could we possibly go wrong? Like maybe the only thing inaccessible about it is the content of these blog posts, which is just some Redwood revenge charm. But one of these apps is on version 27 and the other is on 30. And so this one on 27 actually has a lot of problems. And these problems are unique to SPAs, and an SPA is a single page application. So one thing that a single page application doesn't do is refresh the page. That's kind of the whole point. And that was a huge step forward for client side development to be able to have that kind of interactivity. But without a page refresh, something called a screen reader doesn't know when to tell the user that something new happened. So let me take a step back and explain what a screen reader is. And it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just a piece of software that will announce more or less what's on the screen. And it's not unique to a web browser. It's just for any application. And one of the major ones on Mac is VoiceOver, but there's a lot of different ones on different platforms. Let me show you exactly what I mean by the page isn't announced. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on VoiceOver by pressing Command and the Touch ID button 3 times. And I might have to turn the volume down a little bit because it can get a little loud sometimes, but it might differ for your application. So you can see what VoiceOver is saying down here in this little box, and you can just trust that it's the same. But if I go ahead and navigate to this about here, it's saying I'm on a link, but if I click it, it didn't say that anything changed. Like if I go to contacts, it just says I'm still on the link, and I can go ahead and press it if I want to. So I'll turn that off for a second. And that might not seem like a huge deal, but that's because I can see the page and see that something changed and that I am now on contact. But to someone who's using a screen reader, they have like literally no idea that anything happened. For all they know, maybe about didn't work and they're still like, did the link, could I not press it? Like we have to give more feedback to users using it to let them know that, okay, like I'm on about, it's time to navigate through the new content. So if you needed to do this yourself, if Redwood didn't do it for you, what would you do, right? I'm going to go to the layout because maybe we can do something in the layout here because most of the components run through this layout. What I really want to do is have some effect happen, like an announcement, sync to the URL. So we're going to pull out our favorite hook here, use effect, and we're going to say, I want some kind of effect to run whenever like the location changes. And so I know I can get that from the router here, this use location hook. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And I specifically want the path name, which is like the /about or /contact. And now do announcement. Like, what does that even mean too, right? So I'm going to have to take a step back here. So I don't know how to do that quite yet. So I'm just going to make some state. So announcement. Let's see if I can spell today. Announcement. And then this is going to be use state. And I guess for now, I'll just like set the announcement here to the location path name. And like I said, I don't totally know how to announce this to a screen reader. So let's put it here and we'll figure that out in a second. And now when I go over here, we can see that it is not changing. So path name, let me add that on. So we are getting that feedback. And this is where you just have to have the domain knowledge that, hey, I need to add an ARIA live attribute here to assertive, which means screen reader, like when this changes, stop whatever you're doing and say what's in here. So ARIA is like accessible rich internet applications, and in HTML5, a lot of it is baked in, but there are still things like this that you would really have to know about in order to get this to work. And so if I go ahead and turn VoiceOver on now over here, you should see it say /about. Oh, whoops. Okay, so definitely working, and that's great. It's a step forward, but you see when I go to back home, it says /, and that isn't great either. So am I going to start writing a switch statement for like if we're on /, like say this instead? Like this is starting to become like a whole lot of edge cases. And wouldn't it be nice if like the framework just did it for us? I mean, like the router is changing the page, like it should know when to like change the announcement. And so I'm happy to tell you on version 28 and up, so it does indeed do that. So I'll turn on VoiceOver here on 30. And if I go to about, it says about the Redwood blog. Sorry, I'm infinity spamming here. But if I go back to home, Redwood blog, and then if I go to one of these blog posts, it's going to say actually the H1 on the page. So this is infinitely better than what we had before, even with our use effect hook, which we would have had to, write every single time. And if we change the layout, we're going to have to write that again. So we just want to show you that this is built in by default. There's actually like nothing you have to do, right? Like you're getting this for free. But one thing you can do, like say when I go to contact, it's just going to say contact, right? Because that's the H1 on the page here. And I would really like to give like a more specific message. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the contact page, and I'm going to import this new component from the router called route announcement. And then I'm just going to wrap it right here, whatever announcement I want. Say it's get in touch with us, because this sounds like a little friendlier than just contact and more of a call to action. And I'm going to add this visually hidden prop because I don't want it to show on screen. If I go ahead and save that, you'll notice nothing's changed on contact, but if I turn VoiceOver back on and navigate there, if I go to contact now, it says get in touch with us. So that's like, you really don't have to do that often. Like if you write good H1s, which you should be doing, right? And writing descriptive content, not just like interactivity all the time. You'll get like Redwood will announce something descriptive and the user will be able to navigate through your page and enjoy your content. So one thing done, but is that it? Or like what other SPA problems are there? So I'm going to go ahead and navigate back through this page on the left. And you'll notice if I go to about or contact, focus is left where it is on this contact button or this about button, or just the header if I click that. So that might not seem like a big deal again, but again, let's think like, how do I orient a screen reader user? How do they get oriented on a page? So announcing the page, that's great, but would they think that their focus would be left where it was? That's not super intuitive, and it makes the most sense to either reset it back to the top or send them somewhere where they can start interacting with the new content immediately. So in version, like I'll spare you writing like the use effect hook over here, because it's just another, set of a bunch of edge cases where you're attaching basically a tab index to the DOM and doing all this kind of like stuff. Again, you shouldn't have to be worrying about, because the router knows when things should be happening and how to deal with everything. So if I go ahead and navigate here on 30, if I go to about, my tab is reset back to the top. So I can go ahead and tab through the nav again, and knowing that the content has been changed and that I should go ahead and find out what's new. But it was easier here, like that my focus was on contact and I could just tab straight into the form. And it'd be nice to have that on 30 still. It's not always the best thing to do to reset it to the top. So if there's a way we could either skip the navigation or move focus somewhere that made sense, that would be like a huge step up. So let's go back to version. I'm going to go to the application here and show you a new generator or a new flag on the layout generator. So I'm in this repo here that's on version 30, and I'm going to go ahead and generate a new layout called, this is just the name of it. It has nothing to do with like making it accessible or not, but this flag certainly does, and it's the skip link flag, and it's just going to set this to true. And we'll go ahead and navigate to the repo now and go to that new layout and see what it looks like. So we're just starting you off with some semantic HTML here so that you like use nav and main where you can and not just a bunch of divs. But the new components here are the skip nav link and skip nav content. So let's see these in action. Like, let's go back to the blog layout because this is what is actually there and copy them over. So I'll take this, and it should be the first thing in your markup because you want the user to tab on it first. And then wherever we want to focus is where we put the skip nav content, and that's the main content because the nav is something that we're trying to skip here. So I'll go ahead and grab those imports as well and just paste them up here in the top. And this CSS is what will make it appear invisible until it's actually focused. Then that should be good. Let's just give it a save. And then I'm going to have to do a full refresh. And now if I hit tab, you'll notice the skip to content comes up first. And if I actually hit enter and activate it, I'm no longer tabbing through that nav. I'm going straight to the main content, which I came here to see, which is the blog posts. So this doesn't seem like a huge deal, but again, like if you have sites that have like so much navigation to them, like, and then drop downs, and you have to tab through all of that every time you change the page, this is like a huge deal for getting just like where you want to go. Like you go on a website to come enjoy some kind of content, and here's the blog post, and to get to that faster. And Redwood makes this like really easy to add. And it's really a good idea to add to most of your layouts is just generate with that flag, and you'll get it for free. One of the things you might have noticed is this is reach skip nav is kind of what it's directing us to, and this is totally configurable. If I add content ID here to main content, it's a good generic one. So, and then if I do add ID here to main content as well, that'll show up up here when I activate the skip link. So refresh, and then yeah, just so you know, like most of this stuff is absolutely configurable and you don't have to do anything, but anytime you want to make a change, like you totally can. And let me show you exactly how in contact, like it'd be nice if when I navigated to content, my focus was sent like to the form so I could start filling it out. So I'll go to the contact page and import another thing called route focus and wrap the first text field in that component, telling the router that I want focus to be sent here if possible. And since this is an interactive element, it totally is possible. So let's go back and just hit a refresh. And now if I hit contact, my cursor is right here, just ready for me to like do what I came here to do on the contact page, which is fill out the form. I don't have to go through like the nav or just waste any of my time. And while we're at it, there's one other thing that looks like kind of inaccessible or is a flaw about this nav, which is the color contrast here isn't super great. It's like blue on blue. And that's like generally like a no-no as far as like, again, like I can see it fine, but like we can't assume that that's going to be great or pass for everyone. And how would I know like that was even a problem, right? Well, since we are in a position where we have great integration with Storybook, there's actually an add-on that comes with Storybook by default now in Redwood that will warn you about these accessibility errors while you're developing your component. So you can kind of do testing at the same time you're doing your styling. So this will open at 7, 9, 10 here in a second. Awesome. And I'm going to navigate to the blog layout. And one thing that we're going to try and get this to do automatically is when you change components, this tab here doesn't actually refresh, but this is the accessibility tab. And to hit refresh, you want to hit this button here at the bottom, test completed. And what's crazy is that there were 11 things passing. Like I didn't even know there were 11 things to check about this, right? So like I thought it was just the color, and apparently we did a lot right. But there's a lot to learn in accessibility, and if you use the tooling, it really is going to educate you about like what to look for. And you might notice that you're doing like a lot of it right already, which is great. But don't feel like the tooling's there to help kind of like make learning this stuff more approachable and kind of teach you what to look for. And like specifically what to look for on this page, you can actually just hit this button, highlight results, which will tell you, like, you can imagine this is super useful when there's a lot of components. Just this is the problems right here, and you don't have to like wonder what's wrong, which is the violation. So this panel confirms our suspicions that the foreground color and the background color don't have a great contrast ratio. It's a little low. It says it should be 3. And again, it gives me like extreme detail if I want it. But since I'm using Tailwind, I don't have to do too much. I just go to my layout, and I'm gonna make this 800 and this 300 because that's all I understand about color. And now we're passing. Well, let's hit refresh here just to make sure. But this looks a lot better. Like, it stands out in terms of contrast. So that's something, again, like, hard to catch these things, but we're adding kind of like traps and all the tools we have to catch them as you develop. So you don't have to feel like there's like accessibility, there's a lot to look out for, but Redwood's going to look out for as much of it as it can for you. So that's kind of like what you get just by being on the latest version of Redwood automatically. Like, again, not much you have to do yourself. One thing I do want to point you to is it's great. It's like a great habit to use accessible UI components libraries, like whenever you can. And some of them are like Headless, Chakra, React Aria, and Reach UI. Most of these are like, don't have any styles to them. So you can style them however you want, and they're just going to come with the logic, like the correct logic to make things accessible. And David, if we have time, I can go ahead and use like this menu here to refactor like the links out, but whatever you.
I mean, Dom, this is amazing. We've got 10 more minutes, so yeah, please keep going. I wanted to stop you so many times to say it's just the way the developer experience is coming together, and the work that you did is fantastic. But I mean, tying it together with Storybook, which again, for those who aren't as familiar with the DX, the developer experience behind Redwood, you get Storybook out of the box. You get tests out of the box. So what Dom showed you was not any extra integration. That's just what you get when you use Redwood and the generators. And Tom's telling you, and then if you add a plugin to Storybook, along with everything else you get, you have all these other benefits on the accessibility side. So Dom integrated really nicely, and it's a great demo. But I'd say keep going. And if people have questions, I'll interrupt you as you go. So maybe this will be a little bit, maybe we'll kind of mesh together here toward the end and get some dialogue going as well and talk over you. But yeah, show us more, because I think all this has been really helpful. It'd be great to get on video.
Definitely. One thing I'll say too in Storybook is you can move this panel out of your way when you don't need it just by pressing the A key. And since like you can always turn, oh, whoops, I think I might have hit stop sharing, or
still there.
Okay, if you go to Tom,
you can't stop sharing Livestorm. It doesn't allow.
Yeah, I have to, 4 people have to vote me out or something. If you set A11 to false in the TOML, all the config, like I understand, like, sometimes you're just developing for styles and you're going to focus on accessibility later. It's like totally fine to separate concerns. Like if you ever want to disable, like this won't disable like the announcement and stuff like that. Like I'm never going to turn that off. But if you want to turn like the Storybook stuff off, like you totally can. And we might make the environment variables like more specific if it gets to be a lot of config. But yeah, so one thing, like if we notice kind of how squished together this is getting, like if we add another link here, this isn't going to work, and we're going to have to like probably collapse it down into like a hamburger menu or something. So just to show you how easy it is to use one of these, I'm just going to hit copy. And if you have like Tailwind UI, you can obviously like copy way more, but I'm just going to generate a new component here. I think I had a terminal open. I'll stop Storybook for now and just do yarn Redwood generate component dropdown. Then I'll go to dropdown, and I can delete most of this code. It's a lot of code, mainly because there's a bunch of icons, but we don't need those right now. So I'm going to change this to navigation, and delete all the functions down here and just put the export at the bottom so I know where I'm at. And change this. Okay, so the way these libraries usually work is they give you like one kind of top level component like the menu, and then they have sub components that all work together, and they don't have any styling, which is why you have all the Tailwind classes there. But I know I want the dropdown to show like a bunch of links. And for the link, it's going to look like it's going to be an array like of objects. So, and the objects are going to have properties like to, and like we'll just call this href, and then the text of like where we're actually going. So I know I can map that, like if I do menu items, I can map the links into the JSX that I want. So the menu item for the Tailwind or the headless UI looks like this. So I know this is a markup. It's going to look something here, and I'm just going to delete the styling I don't need in a second. I'm going to import the link too, because I know I'm going to render one of those for each object passed in. And so this is what we don't need, is it's just changing, like you get this active prop to show when the cursor is like over the item, and you want to show like some kind of visual effect so that the user knows like things about to happen if I click, or this is where my focus actually is. So we'll just have this be like a link instead, and we don't still keep that active styling. And then 2 will be href, and then we're going to pass in like the Redwood routes.about or something like that, and we'll just call it here. And it looks like I just have some extra markup I need to get rid of, or I'm missing a few parentheses. I'll come back to that in a second. But in our layout, we know we're just gonna, instead of having this nav here, we'll get rid of like the contents here. Just comment it out for now and do, whoops, the drop down, and then links equals links that will assemble from these 2 links we had here. So let's just do const links equals the array, and then 2 will be about, and then the href will be routes.about, and I think this was text, not 2. And then same thing here, text contact, and then href is routes.contact. Just have to import it. Okay, great. Now I just have to fix what was wrong over here.
There's no closing menu.item tag.
Oh, totally. Thank you. Awesome. So I can go ahead and delete pretty much all these menu items. So I'm going to go to the closing one down here, 148, and just do delete the div menu items, and href isn't, oh, my bad, link.href. See if key, I think React will still compile. No. I pass it in correctly over here.
I thought I saw an extra closing menu item when you deleted all those menu items. There's an extra closing tag left over. Down a little bit. Oh no, that's right. Right, menu items. Yeah, that's right.
I'll throw the key in here just to keep React happy. Let's see. Something I'm passing in isn't right then, right? Did I Sorry, this was supposed to show how easy it was,
That's-
and I'm not.
No,
selling
it's all
it.
right. Francois had an idea.
Oh, it's that when you call
about-
when you call drop
ahead.
down. Sorry, when you call drop down, you did singular link, but it's supposed to be links.
Oh man,
Right there, that prop name link. There you go.
are you? If I had TypeScript, right, Rob, or no?
No.
Like, Rob, you literally maxed out our speaker. That was good. Maxed out Livestorm audio. The TypeScript yell.
So that it didn't seem like that was way easier than if you had to build it yourself and had to worry about if it was accessible. And one of the things here that's still not, I have to change this from focus visible to just focus. And then I'll make it red just so we can really see the ring show up when I'm on it. If I go here, yeah, so we see if I hit enter, and now if I arrow, I'm using the arrow keys to go up and down, and obviously we have a styling issue here because if I'm active on the link, it's changing the text to white, which is obviously not what we want. But focus is actually trapped in this navigation menu. Like I'm hitting tab and I can't leave it until I hit like escape, which actually, you know, that works. Like, and if I click outside, it also goes away. So much logic that you really don't have to worry about. And for fumbling through, it actually didn't take too long. So I guess I'm just really urging you guys to use one of these libraries or check them out. It'll definitely save you a ton of headache way down the road when it comes to like, you know, actually going to production and you have people asking you like, well, like, is this accessible? Like you'll have answers to that question way before you ever knew you needed them. So
Hey, Dom, while you're there, could you show us the screen reader going through that? I've never experienced that myself.
Totally. So there's probably more I could do, like put in terms of like a span, and Tailwind has this great SR only class that'll give you more info, but it does like list what is about. And if you're on the navigation, something that it says like the 2 items part comes from like, that's not, you would have to like make sure you're using semantic HTML for that to come up too. Like make sure it's like an ordered list. And like, again, like you have to worry about none of that using the library. You just have to like use the markup in the correct way here. Maybe the trickiest thing about this is like the render props, but if you want hooks, React Aria is more of the way to go. But we'll also look for ways to make this like easier to do in Redwood, whether it's like providing custom generators or more like examples or cookbooks. This is just like the start, and we're happy to have like this in for V1 for sure, but we're definitely not going to stop in terms of offering more solutions and just like making it easier for you as a developer to at least like either like know when there's a problem and how you could fix it, and or at least like just fix it for you if we can.
I pasted the link to the accessibility docs as they are now. What will be coming? What might be missing those docs right now that you demoed or showed, if anything?
Route focus needs to be added to that. That was like the most recent thing we merged in, and so that'll come in there. And I'll also have like the recommendations for libraries to use for building the UI, and also just resources where you like can learn more about like if you really want to dig into like Aria and semantic HTML and all that stuff, like ways so you don't have to like ask, like, you know, there's so many resources out there and you can just go to the one that I think will help you get started.
Okay. Yeah, very good. And the plugin for Storybook, is that built in now, or is that something you have to do additionally? I forgot where that landed.
Yeah, that's totally built in. So you don't have to worry about, we'll just focus on getting that refresh to happen a little more automatically, so you don't think you got a passing test when there's like 5 things that are actually wrong or something.
Got it. Dom, thank you.
Really amazing stuff, Dom. This came out so nice. I'm really glad that you worked on it, and just very pleased with how this came together. And it's been really important to me to have as part of the 1.0 release. So I'm super thrilled that that's going to be in there for 1.0. And this accessibility stuff, like, you might not think that you need it, but if you have to add it later on, it's a million times harder. So if you just get started from the beginning and you just put the attention into it as you build your site, you'll save yourself a lot of time down the road. And we're really trying to make Redwood make that easy enough that you'll actually do it.
Here, here. Like tests, right? Turns out
it's like
people use it if it actually works.
Like all this stuff. Like if we can make it easy enough that you'll actually do it, then there's just magnificent wins and time savings in the long run that we can unlock.
Absolutely. Well, officially, we're 2 past the time. We try to go 1 hour 15 on these, so we can have a break if you need to peel out. For those who joined us, thank you. I know I can definitely linger a little bit longer. Sean, Dom, no pressure. Rob, you've got to stay because we need you. I mean, not that we don't need anybody else, but anyone who wants to stay, please join. We could do more conversation, questions. If you have questions for Dom and Sean, we could get to those as well if they can stick around. If anyone else would like to join us on stage, we can add more people. Audio is great. You don't have to do video. Just let me know and I can bring you up here. Cliff's got questions. Tom, what is the future?
Asking the tough questions right there.
I like that one.
The future. Well, one thing that hasn't gone in yet, so we're very, very close to getting a 1.0 release candidate out. There's only a couple of small things. TypeScript support is very near to where we need it to be for a 1.0 release candidate. So that's super exciting. And the other big thing is what we're calling, what are we calling it? It's securing GraphQL by default. So one of the problems that Redwood has right now is as you're writing your thing, if you have authentication, so you add authentication, we make that super easy, but then we leave it up to you to have to add something like a require auth call to every service function that's going to be a GraphQL entry point. And if you don't do that, then your GraphQL call is just wide open to the world. Anyone can call it. Have fun, everybody, deleting my users. So that's bad. So for 1.0, we want to make sure that we secure that by default so that it's default secure instead of default insecure, which is the case right now. And so we have a technique that we call the before resolver that you can use to define some bit of authentication or whatever you want to do in it that is going to be run before any function, any service function that is invoked from a GraphQL call, so that you just put that into each one of your services. It'll always be called, and you can make sure that you specifically either allow a function to be authenticated and called, or you can tell it to be skipped, and then it's insecure, right? But intentionally insecure. And so you have to make a choice for every GraphQL entry point function as to whether it's going to have some authentication, you specify it, or that it's going to be skipped. And that way you know for sure that it's secure, and you're not going to put something out there that you're like, oh, and I forgot to authenticate it, and so now I'm screwed and someone can go and access all my stuff or delete all my stuff. That's amateur hour, and we don't do amateur hour here at Redwood, do we? No, we don't do amateur
Only
hour.
on our live streams. Well, not me.
Only
Not
you.
Dom.
Only you, David.
Dom, that was
the opposite of amateur
amazing.
hour. That live demo was robust.
That was robust.
I'm like
But all my
sweating
live
while he's
demos
doing
to
it. Like, oh
shame.
my God, he's not going to remember what the invocation of the nope. Nailed it. So that's coming. So before resolver. So there's some stuff on the forum. Anthony, I'm really shocked that you haven't linked it yet.
Which one? Making Redwood
The link master.
accessible.
So that's on
I already
the,
linked it.
There's a PR for that. We're very nearly in completion for that. So that's super far. So that's going to go in for 1.0. And then the future is 1.0. And we'll get a release candidate out hopefully in the next month or two, maybe even sooner than a month. I don't know. But every time I make predictions, they are wrong. So I've stopped predicting. We will have a 1.0 RC sometime, hopefully soon. And then we'll have probably a month or two of just making sure that the bugs are all taken care of, little edge cases, filling out any little missing bits of TypeScript support that we missed, tidying things up, and making sure that we get a really solid, stable 1.0 out there that people can trust. That's the future. And then after that, then we can do a bunch of fun stuff. Really, really interesting, new, cool features. Maybe supporting a mobile side we could get really serious about, right? Like this has been the dream of Redwood from the beginning, is to have multiple client sides. We have the web side now, but we would love to have a mobile side that is just React Native and does all the same kind of nice things for you out of the box. Maybe a command line side. You want to do a command line tool, boom, just generate that side, and we got all the data fetching and stuff figured out for you for your command line and authentication, and it's all just connected in a Redwood easy kind of way. And make data fetching really more performant and solve some of the problems around waterfall. There's a bunch of performance types of things. Get more into caching, different and deeper kinds of caching to go along with the pre-render functionality. Those are all things that we'll get into post 1.0. Tons of really good stuff. An infinite amount of amazing things that we can do that we have to prioritize.
Yeah. Here. So Danny, if you're still out there, we're about to release 0.31. Tom, that was for you. I'm going to say, just for all those who've been listening in regularly, it's a decimal, so I normally do 0.31, but then, I don't know, this guy that started semantic versioning, anyway, I poke him in the soft spot.
They're whole numbers, man. They're whole numbers. 31 comes after 30, which comes after. It does. 30.
So 31's coming out imminently. And Danny, are we wrapping up TypeScript? All the generators have TypeScript support as of 31. Is there, in Peter and you, or Peter figured out some magic with cells? We have strict cell, we've strictly typed our cells. That change is coming with 31. I mean, are we there? Danny, tell us what we've done. Porsche 911. Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, whoa. Danny, where you been?
What's up, Danny?
See, nice haircut, right? That's where I was.
Nice.
I'm very pleased after so many months to be able to get a haircut. Yeah, so where are we at with TypeScript? So 31 going out today, fingers crossed, is going to have full generator support. So you can do your scaffolds, your page, your layouts, everything you can generate in TypeScript. What 31 won't have is the typing. So if you import a cell and you try to pass it a prop, it won't have the types for that just yet. So that's going to be coming in 32. And there's a couple of other things that, fingers crossed, 32. I'm not going to commit to it. Yeah, a couple of other things that I'm looking into as well, which if we can get in, TypeScript support is going to be amazing. Like cell query types. Whatever you write in the cell, it just generates the types for you. So that's the sort of thing we're hoping to get in very, very soon.
So close is what you're saying. That's a short, small list.
Yeah.
Great work on that. That's cool. Yeah, I saw some exciting PRs coming in and ideas coming in to handle TypeScript. So, man, way to go. Tom, there was a little like comparison article that was written recently about like which full stack framework could you use, and I don't know, I was not down with the conclusion, which was roll your own. That was where the thing ended up.
Yeah,
but
they said if they had to pick one, that was Redwood. So
yeah, they basically picked Redwood. Yeah, at the end
for prototyping. So I like that. But one of their like concerns, right? Pros and cons, because you got to have some cons. Was well, what if people just stop updating the framework, and what if people stop publishing new releases? Like, what if Redwood just goes away, Tom?
Can't
so
stop.
Tom,
stop.
that's
Redwood.
That's what I almost looped in Tom to say, hey Tom, you still interested in doing Redwood for another year or so? So yeah, I think we're here to stay.
Wait till we get a 1.0 out. I think things are really gonna pick up even more than they have been. We hit a 1.0, man. It's floodgates. The floodgates will open. And come on, you've seen that NPM chart. Numbers don't lie.
The article also said that
come down though.
That we weren't portable, and now we are very easy to run on a server that is not on AWS Lambda. So we're pretty portable.
Yeah, Sean, you're gonna need some more servers there. Let us know. Get ready. Send some people your way.
We're excited.
8, 9, 10 stars, Mike. I enjoy Mike. Mike's got the witty banner. We're excited too. All right, well.
And his gift game, Mike's gift game is really, really strong, man. Like if you're on the Redwood Discord, it's the best.
Well, Mike, wait, Kurt had a question about state management. Do we or will we have an opinion on state management?
That is a great question, actually. We haven't talked about state management in a long time, other than when we do talk about it, we normally just complain a bit.
I would say all of us have opinions on state management.
It's
whether
like,
Redwood has an opinion will be a much harder answer. It's
like CSS at this point. You can't, I don't know that you can pick one and not alienate like 85% of your audience. It's not, it hasn't stabilized enough to really choose one, honestly. And the use cases sometimes are different enough that it's inappropriate to use a heavyweight one if you just need a lightweight one. I don't know that we can choose one yet. Maybe in the future.
Is anyone using something? Anyone on here on this stage? Redux was the latest. Which one? Urquell?
Recoil.
Oh, Recoil.
Recoil.
There's been like 15 in the last 2 months. Like it's just never ending, and there's slight variations on a very transparent API. Like there's just not much to them, but there's a bunch of different ones that are very similar that feel very lightweight. But I can't pick one for everybody to use yet.
I feel like the trend I'm seeing, actually Alec mentioned it, is, I mean, hooks and context are probably taking up a lot of, like, people can push the ball a little bit farther down the road, so they don't have to be, everyone's just like deciding later. I can manage right now, or as Alec just mentioned in the comments, maybe there's some things I could do with Apollo client and handle things that way. So kind of that'd be the trend generally that I notice right now, is everyone's putting off the decision as long as they can for adding some other state management tooling library.
Yeah, I mean, we're always interested in our opinions, though. Like, if you have ones that you really, really love, like, tell us. And the more we hear about them, the more that we can know about them. And when it's time to make a decision someday, if that makes sense, if Redwood needs to make a decision, then it's useful to know what the options are and how people like them.
It's also worth pointing out that it's going to partly depend on just your client. So if you stick with Apollo, you can do state management with Apollo. But if you're going to pull out Apollo and bring in, say, like the React query provider, then you have different decisions to make about state. So it's partly going to depend on, first, you want to kind of make your client decision. And I think your state management decision spins out from that. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, no, that feels very, very true. Well, anything else, crew? Questions? Just general enthusiasm. I think we did it. Those are some great demos. Thank you, everyone, for putting the time into those.
Redwood.
Oh, good.
We got the Redwood shop.
Oh, the Redwood shop. Rob, tell us what we can shop for.
Shop.redwoodjs.com, which I was telling someone about, and I'm like, I think that would be the URL. And it was the URL.
I'm going to type it out.
Excellent choice of URLs.
And I think it was, what was it? Redwood Community?
Oh, DT, did I miss an announcement from you? Sorry, get that out. Is DT still there? Redwood Community gets me 20% off.
It's a bargain. Can't not buy them at that point, at that price.
And also read all of the descriptions on the products, because they're absolutely hilarious.
Thank you.
I actually spent an evening looking at each product and looking at all of the descriptions. It was awesome.
Yeah, Redwood Community, all one word. Okay, I wasn't sure if there's a dash in there.
That's right. They are pretty good. DT.
I'll have to give Danny's plug for my descriptions. I'll have to give Danny 100% off. Thanks, Danny.
It's the only shirt. It's true. Still wearing it.
Okay, so DT, I don't know if you can come up on up here or not, but there are 3, I believe, new projects that have started up. That's a post to the Redwood forums. If you haven't taken a look, there's 3 projects that are in need of some help, and there's different posts that David Tierson just created. Take a look at those because we could use some help, and I'll just name those right now while it's pulling up here. But they're, I know that one of them is, we're looking for some help with the splash page, the page when you start up Redwood page redesigns. We're looking for some help with a Prisma project. They need us to build a test case for them that improve things on the, I believe it's a database query with GraphQL. And well, maybe those are the two that are up right now. But take a look at the forums. They're up there, and ask if you have any questions or know someone who might be able to help out those projects. Great ways to start getting involved as a contributor. And we love contributors. We want to help anyone and everyone participate in the Redwood community at any level that they're excited about. So that could be general help and support in the forums. We have people helping out with documentation. Some of these other projects that are one-off projects, not necessarily connected to the framework. And of course, if you want to help contribute to the framework itself, we would love to help you get started in doing that. There's a lot of great docs online, and there's several places across our forums and our chat where there's categories just for getting started as a contributor. We can help you get going. Okay, we got other things going. So with that, I think we'll call it an end. Thank you all. I'll get the recording up for this in about an hour or so. It'll go on our YouTube channel. And Cliff, thanks for joining. Anyone else who came for the first time, it was a pleasure, and we hope to see you in the forums and in the chat as well. I'll wait till Cliff's done. Cliff from Florida.
Did anyone else notice audio?
It was amazing.
Anyone else notice audio issues as bad as I did? There's like a weird 5-second delay. Everyone's talking over each other? No? It's just me?
I didn't know that. No, but the streaming of the screen shares is terrible. Like it's super laggy. Like it refreshes like once every second, and you're like, I have no idea what's going on.
That seems like it's gotten worse. I agree. Oh, Toba. Wait, you had audio issues?
Well, once we watch the video back, that's kind of like the source of what most people will experience. So that's usually how I check to see whether things actually work. So I just watch the video back and see what lagged and what didn't.
I still think we should evaluate other options and ones that could get us really high quality streams of shared desktops, because that's if you don't do that well, then you're really screwed, because we do a lot of demos.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's ways. I need some more options. I evaluated it.
I would say Twitch is going to be better than Discord. Discord still has problems for some people screen sharing depending on their permissions, and if their computer is more than 3 or 4 years old, Discord's not going to work for their computer.
Got it. All right, I'm open options. Well, a lot of people use the kind of what is your self-host your streaming, but then the stream is 10 seconds ahead of the actual.
Yeah, if you want really high
quality
streams, you need to do a proper RTMP stream or whatever, and then you get the 10-second delay, which, whatever. Like we could deal with that. I think it would be possible for us to deal with that if we needed to. If we had to do that to get high quality screen shares and the video, I would make that trade-off probably.
Got it. Maybe that's where we go next. All right. TBD. Okay, I'm officially hitting the end event. I'll miss you all.
Thanks, everyone. Great to see you all.
Thanks.
I'm using demos today.
Yeah, great demos.
Thanks, everyone.
Catch you on the internet. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.